Our fans have an expectation that technology is part of their experience, and Spectrum helps us do that.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. Former President Bill Clinton started his deposition Friday saying he saw no signs of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse and he did nothing wrong in his relationship with the convicted sex offender. Clinton is named in the Epstein files but hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing. Well, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified Thursday. Democrats on the committee say they have enough votes to subpoena Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick next on his relationship with Epstein. And President Donald Trump says he's not happy with Iran as negotiations continue over Iran's nuclear program. But the president says more talks are on the way and the U.S. hasn't made a final decision on potential military action. U.S. forces have been building up in the Middle East as the president has repeatedly threatened to attack Iran if negotiations fail. Secretary of State Marco Rubio heads to Israel next week for more talks. And Colin Gray, the father of an alleged shooter at Appalachian High School in Georgia, took the stand Friday in his own trial. He's facing nearly 30 charges, including second-degree murder and manslaughter for buying his son a gun and giving him unsecured access to it, despite warnings he was a danger to others. Gray has pleaded not guilty to all charges. He says he gave his son the gun in hopes of bonding with him. And that is a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
Meteorologist Alan Ogles here with a look at your weather on the ones. Some welcome rainfall for parts of Florida. That will continue into Saturday. Meanwhile, it's about the record heat in the southwest with highs getting up into the 90s, but there's still some wintry weather to track this weekend into early next week across the northern tier. We'll get to all of that coming up with your weather on the ones.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program brings you a weekly update of facts and analysis about the future of our country and its people. This week, the big deal was President Trump's State of the Union address and its aftermath. The speech, which broke the president's own record for the longest State of the Union speech ever, clocked in at just under 1 hour and 48 minutes. The U.S. economy and healthcare took center stage during the address. The president also talked about his administration's mass deportation campaign and ongoing tensions with the nation of Iran, and what the president calls election cheating. The president used the occasion to present awards to the Olympic men's hockey team and a number of public servants and veterans. The backdrop of the speech is the upcoming midterm elections, which begin in 3 states next week and could lead to a change in control of Congress later this year. Here's a snippet of the president's speech, which included an upbeat vision of the nation.
Together, we're building a nation where every child has the chance to reach higher and go further, where government answers to the people, not the powerful, and where the interests of hardworking American citizens are always our first and ultimate concern. And that is the promise we must keep to America for our 250th year.
Joining me now with more are two top political analysts. Cassie Semyon is a political reporter for Spectrum News based in Washington, D.C. Jason Fechner is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And Cassie, you were actually inside the House chambers for the State of the Union address. President Trump used part of his speech, of course, to attack Democratic lawmakers, blaming them for rising health care premiums and accusing Somalians of committing fraud and even calling some Democrats, quote, crazy. What was the reaction like from the Democratic side of the chamber?
When he started making those claims, a lot of people were calling him out for lying or not telling the full truth of the situation. And I do want to explain, because I'm not sure how well it was depicted on camera, but when the president walks into the State of the Union, traditionally there are both Democrats and Republicans escorting him down the aisle. The Democrats did not do that this time in protest. We actually saw Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries sitting the entire time the president entered the chamber. Traditionally, you stand for the president. Minority Leader Schumer, for example, in the Senate, he was standing. He wasn't applauding the president, but he was standing. We actually saw a lot of House Democrats remain seated, and that was their silent protest of sorts. But then when he started calling them out by name, we actually saw a lot of Democrats get up and leave, and there was a lot of frustration on the fact that he didn't talk about the economy. I was talking to one Democrat during the speech, and they mentioned to me the president spoke more about sports during his State of the Union than the economy itself. And I did want to touch on, of course, being in the gallery when the U.S. men's hockey team came down the aisles. We were all kind of surprised when that moment happened. That was a real showing of bipartisan support, one of the very few from that speech. So it was a very interesting night, Errol, and it was very lively within the chamber. I don't know how well that came across on television, but it was definitely an experience being inside.
Oh, no, thanks for filling that in. We actually could not tell from the camera shots that we had. Now, meanwhile, Jason, Vice President J.D. Vance visited your state, Wisconsin, to amplify the administration's message about the economy. Here's a little bit of what he said.
Hearing the Democrats talk about affordability is like hearing an arsonist complain about fire. It's your fault. You guys left us a country with sky-high inflation. You all left us a country where we were going everywhere but America for energy. You left us a United States of America where the average family was $3,000 poorer.
So no, Jason, politicians say a lot of things, but the numbers don't lie. Did Democrats cause the affordability crisis and leave the country with, quote, sky-high inflation?
Errol, it's a great question. And of course, inflation was definitely an issue during President Joe Biden's presidency. And it's one of the main reasons that President Trump won election in 2024. And as for who's to blame for the inflation issues out there, a lot of economists will point to economic stimulus issues tied to the pandemic, still the ongoing housing crisis that's out there, and pent-up consumer demand. For the most part, though, a lot of those issues have continued to be issues throughout the first year of President Trump's time back in office right now. And what we're seeing, both from what J.D. Vance had to say here in Wisconsin, what President Trump said during the State of the Union address, and what Democrats have been saying for months now, so much of what happens in the midterms will come down to framing this argument about who is the better party when it comes to affordability. That's the big keyword that's out there right now, and simply making Americans feel better about what they have in their savings accounts, if they do have them, what they have in their 401ks. I know that President Trump during the State of the Union said most Americans have an extra 30 grand in their 401k accounts right now, and I wonder about those independent voters out there who, get their paycheck and check their 401k if they have it, and they, how do they feel if they don't have that extra 30K out there right now? Push comes to shove, grocery prices still high right now, car prices through the roof, the housing crisis again still a crisis. So, Democrats could benefit from all of this just as Republicans did in 2024.
Okay, and then Cassie, meanwhile, the Virginia governor, Abigail Spanberger, delivered the rebuttal to President Trump's State of the Union address. Here is a part of what she had to say.
In the most innovative and exceptional nation in the history of the world, Americans deserve to know that their leaders are focused on addressing the problems that keep them up at night. Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? We all know the answer is no.
So now Abigail Spanberger, speaking for the Democrats, is saying that Trump and the Republicans are not focused on the cost of living. What are they focused on, in the opinion of Democratic leaders, Cassie?
Well, it's everything but is essentially the answer that I've been getting when I've been speaking with Democrats on Capitol Hill. And as Jason pointed out, this was a campaign promise of the president in 2024 that on day one he would start bringing down costs. And with his tariff policies, that has contributed a bit, as has inflation that has been declining since the Biden administration left office. But don't forget, President Trump was president when the COVID pandemic came about here in this country. And that's what led to the inflation that we saw during the Biden administration. It has gone down, but Americans are still paying more for everyday household items, and they're not seeing wages grow to help offset any of those additional costs that they're seeing. And so that's why Democrats are trying to frame that message really focused on affordability, even though the president is calling it a hoax. And that's the messaging that they're going to really lean into in the coming months with those midterms. And they're hoping that now they can win that argument in 2026.
Okay, and then finally, Jason, the president used the address to attack the integrity of American elections, repeating claims that he's made since losing the presidential election back in 2020. We should note that those claims are false. There has not been evidence discovered of widespread voter fraud. But now the president is pushing Congress to pass a bill that would require voters to show proof of citizenship before casting ballots. Break down how that would work and why many local officials are opposed to the idea.
Errol, quickly, of course, we're talking about the SAVE Act. It passed the House with a 218 to 213 party line vote there. It's since stalled basically in the Senate. It would require new proof of citizenship requirements when you're registering to vote, be it a birth certificate or a passport that Democrats argue many Americans simply don't have access to. You would also need a photo ID to vote, and that's something that is already required in a lot of states out there. Republicans say that this is all about protecting the vote out there. Democrats say that this is a way to kind of muddy the waters out there, confuse a lot of voters, and disenfranchise voters moving forward out there. Again, it is stalled in the Senate, and Democrats often wonder, as President Trump says, this is a way to save America. If they were able to rig an election in 2020 when President Trump was in office, how did they not rig it in 2024 to let President Trump back into office? So a lot of questions as the SAVE Act remains stalled right now.
All right. Thanks very much, Jason. Thank you, Cassie, as well. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about autonomous vehicles as the company Waymo accelerates its rollout of robo-taxis all across American cities.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
The storm came through with 120-mile-an-hour winds through our neighborhood. My daughter had to evacuate to our house while we were out of town. Sure enough, power goes out. When the generator kicked back on, it, of course, powered the Spectrum modem. She didn't lose service, and we didn't lose connectivity with her through the entire storm. We both breathed a sigh of relief. To have her feel safe and us feel reassured that she was okay was priceless.
Real customers, real reliability. To get the most reliable internet, visit spectrum.com/stay connected.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
are back with the big deal. This week, the company Waymo began dispatching robo-taxis in 4 cities, bringing its fleet of self-driving cars to 10 major metropolitan areas. The expansion cities include Dallas and Houston and San Antonio in Texas, as well as Orlando in Florida. These robo-taxis used by Waymo have already been transporting passengers in Phoenix and San Francisco, Los Angeles and Miami, Atlanta and Austin, Texas. Right now, Waymo's robo-taxis will only be available to a limited number of riders in the new expansion cities. Spectrum News traffic anchor Jerry Hume has the details about what's going on in Orlando.
After months of mapping the streets of Orlando, Waymo, the driverless ride-hailing service, is now welcoming its first public riders. I was one of the first to take a ride in the autonomous vehicle on Tuesday.
It's a little weird at first to see, no one behind the wheel, the steering wheel doing all of the maneuvering here. But after a few minutes of navigating the roads, you can understand that this robo-taxi is pretty smart.
Waymo will be covering 60 square miles in Orlando. The only hitch, no freeways and no access to the airport just yet. Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer was also one of the first to take a ride.
Very smooth. I felt extremely safe. Obeyed all the traffic laws. Felt more comfortable than a lot of people that I ride with.
Of course, there are concerns about crashes, and with 3,000 vehicles across 10 cities, there have been incidents involving Waymo. But the company says even in Orlando's ever-changing weather, its vehicles are safer than those with human drivers, never tired, impaired, or distracted.
We have 29 cameras, 6 radars, and 5 lidars. And we also have audio sensors on the vehicle that are listening for sirens. And so all of this information combined so that the Waymo driver has a really detailed understanding of where it is in the world and what is around it, and a more detailed understanding than what a human eyes and ears can understand and see.
Before rolling out service to everyone, Waymo is gradually inviting those who've downloaded the app and joined a waitlist to take the first rides in Orlando. Jerry Hume, Spectrum News.
Spectrum News traffic anchor Jerry Hume joins me now from the streets of Orlando with more on all of this. And Jerry, what is it like to actually get into one of these Waymo cars? Do you get greeted by like a robot voice? Do they play music for you?
You know, they do have some music in there, and you can actually select it based on your preferences, but it's kind of, Errol, like, using your Uber or Lyft app. You use the Waymo app to call and hail that ride, and then it just shows up. Nobody inside, so it's a little weird. And then you use your app on the phone to unlock the car, and then you get inside and you hit a button and then you go. So it's pretty interesting that way, and as I mentioned, it's a little surreal when you see the wheels start to turn or to pass a vehicle in the streets of Orlando, especially if you're not used to it.
I noticed you had your seatbelt on. So now what is the process like for Waymo to launch in these big cities like Orlando? The mayor's on board, but he alone can't really approve their use on the street, right?
Right, yeah, and there are state regulations in place for that. But Waymo has been in Orlando for more than 6 months, I should say, and they've been testing, mapping out every street. So every street that Waymo will travel on, it's already been on, and so it knows where the potholes are or where the speed bumps are to kind of give a smooth ride. And so this has helped laying the groundwork, they hope, learning everything. The vehicles are constantly learning to expand to future cities, including New York, Boston, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Detroit, Tampa, and even overseas, Errol, to Tokyo and London, where it'll obviously have to learn how to drive on the opposite side of the road.
So now I understand, Jerry, there's a AAA survey that finds that 60% of Americans are actually scared of robo-taxis. What's the safety story, and what are some of the concerns that experts have about how to make these things work properly and safely?
Well, yeah, Errol, Waymo says they do like 400,000 trips a week, and they're hoping to hit 1 million by the end of the year. So obviously there have been incidents. You have that many trips out there. There have been crashes. Just last month there was a child that was hit, minor injuries near a California elementary school. Feds are investigating that. Feds also investigating Waymo vehicles passing stopped school buses. That's been a big problem in Austin, in Texas. Waymo says they're constantly updating with software, but also every time something happens, it's learning, it's constantly learning, and that spreads to the other vehicles that it has. You know, there's always concerns. Yeah, we mentioned the weather in our piece there. They say they're ready for it, whether it's the snow up north that you're encountering or the hot or rainy conditions that we deal with here in Florida. And they say they've tested it in other cities that they've been in and also in simulated environments.
Okay. Now, of course, we have to mention there is competition here. Tesla and Amazon are testing their own autonomous driving vehicles in select cities. In Washington, D.C., meanwhile, the Senate Commerce Committee is looking at creating a national safety standard for self-driving cars. Here's what Waymo's chief safety officer said in January at a Senate committee hearing.
The U.S. needs a predictable, durable, national regulatory framework that sets a high safety standard based on a safety case. Without it, we face a fragmented landscape of state regulations that foster uncertainty, slow investment, and create unequal access to the technology. To truly deliver on the promise of fully autonomous vehicles, we need federal leadership, and we need it in this Congress.
So now, Jerry, what would a national safety framework look like?
Yeah, Errol, well, for years, lawmakers have kicked around this idea of having some kind of national standards to preempt the patchwork of state laws. And it seems like the Self-Drive Act is really getting some traction this year. And that would create these national safety standards administered by the National Highway Safety Traffic Administration. And they would regulate everything from safety to cybersecurity to other commercial uses for the vehicles. So that is one of the big things that they're looking into right now. The whole goal here is to rapidly increase the number of autonomous vehicles on the streets in America to compete with the AV technology that's coming out of China.
Okay, fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for that update, Jerry Hume. We are not done just yet. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the balance of power in Congress ahead of the start of midterm election.
The stories that touch our border affect us all. That's why at Spectrum News Plus, we don't just cover these communities. Our dedicated reporting team also calls them home. That perspective allows us to take an in-depth look, going beyond the politics, to see the impact on people's lives and what it means for you and your community. Balanced border coverage that tells the full story here on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
I had a heart attack about 1.5 years ago, and so now I have an ICD implant that needs stable and reliable internet to give routine checks and daily reports to my cardiologist. When my cardiologist told me he wasn't getting the information he needed, me and my fiance looked into better internet providers, and we found Spectrum. As soon as we switched, he said he saw every daily report, every routine check that they did. It made us feel like we were back in control of my life.
Real customers, real reliability. To get the most reliable internet, visit Spectrum.com.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us Saturday nights at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Thanks for staying with The Big Deal. Next week, the all-important midterm elections officially kick off, with primary elections taking place in Arkansas, North Carolina, and Texas. That's a big deal because the balance of power in Washington, D.C. is up for grabs, with President Trump and the Republican Party defending their control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. Here's a look at where things stand. Republicans have a majority in the U.S. Senate, 53 seats compared to 47 Democrats. Over in the House, it's a much narrower margin, 218 seats to only 214. Joining me now with more on the balance of power is Spectrum News chief national political reporter Josh Robin. Good to see you, my friend.
Always.
We have talked about some of the competitive Senate races on this program. Which ones, though, are you tracking that could have a national impact?
There are a bunch. This is a really interesting season. So let's go right to the map and show folks where the analysts think that this could actually flip from Democrats to Republican, or maybe Republicans will hold on to things. We'll start all the way in the top of the Northeast, Maine. Susan Collins running for another term. There's a really interesting primary that's going to be held on the Democratic side on June 9th. That's between the governor, Janet Mills, and the progressive challenger, Graham Plattner. Really interesting split within the party. I'm not going to get into polls because it's just too soon. Turning down to North Carolina, people might remember that Tom Tillis is not running for another term. He's famously been clashing with President Donald Trump. He is a Republican. And there is that primary that you mentioned, but it's really settled. Obviously, people should go out to vote. But Michael Whatley is going to be pretty much the Republican nominee. He's going to face off against former Governor Roy Cooper. Last time a Democrat won in North Carolina was back in 2015, but it's a possible pickup. Turning now to the Midwest, let's go over to Michigan. The Democrat Gary Peters, Errol, is not running again. A really competitive Democratic primary and not really one on the Republican side. So it's a possibility that Republicans could take over there. And super briefly, Ohio. John Houston is running against Sherrod Brown, although there is a primary there as well.
Okay, so now Democrats only need to flip a few seats to take control of the House of Representatives. That has been complicated, though, by a nationwide redistricting battle where both parties are redrawing congressional districts to try and give their candidates an advantage. How many seats are both sides attempting to pick up as a result?
Let's just answer that by saying as many as possible, and I don't want to give you a number because, first of all, things have already been really gerrymandered before, so things are very tight to begin with. Nonetheless, there is all sorts of redistricting that has been going on or that has been attempted to go on. It started in Texas, and the big other state that followed was California. If it's a wave year for the Democrats, and sometimes it is for the party not in control, you could talk about double digits, but with things being as polarized and as tight and as gerrymandered already, it's possible that we have Republicans stay in control. It's possible that Democrats take control by just a little bit. So not a great answer to your question other than stay tuned, and we're following it closely.
Okay, so now besides Tuesday's elections, what other states are going to be holding elections, primaries in March?
Well, the big one I would say is Georgia. Marjorie Taylor Greene, obviously not running again. She left the House, and there is a race to fill her seat. That is expected to be filled by a fellow Republican. Obviously, we've also been talking about the Texas primary. That is happening really soon. It could, however, be a runoff in that race. So this goes on. An already expensive race goes on and on.
All right. Thanks very much, Josh. And from now until Election Day in November, Spectrum News will be covering the midterms, bringing you the big picture of American politics from a local point of view. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local Spectrum station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
The Nanakuli Valley is the largest Hawaiian community in the state of Hawaii. Because of Spectrum and their investment, Alulike is a place that people can come and access technology. Many of our participants don't have computers at home. We have programs that help students, that help adults get employment. Spectrum gives us the tools to help more people get there.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times, powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.